everybody, to Tectonic Takes. This is Favi, one of your regular hosts, back again. I'm back from yellow card accumulation. Ivan, you and Will held down the show last week, and I thank you for that. I was doing too many good fouls, just like Rometti and trophies, and I got my fifth yellow. I decided to tweet a little crazy, and I took a break, right? So It's nice to be back. I wish it was a little bit on better terms. But Ivan, how was holding down the fort last week?
It was great. I always enjoyed talking to each of you, whether it's you or Will. So it's a lot of fun. We all share that same passion for the San Jose Earthquakes. That's why we're on this podcast, and I'll have a lot to share with the listeners. So I'm glad that we get to have the opportunity to let our voices be heard. And now we're out of that honeymoon phase in MLS. Everything was nice, one match a week, and then now here we go, first midweek fixtures of the season, and San Jose Earthquakes, one of many teams playing twice in the span of 3 days.
Yeah, I like that reference, the honeymoon stage, because it was nice. It was just once a week, and then all of a sudden, you start playing 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and then you maybe second guess, being married to this team. Definitely. Once you get out of that honeymoon stage, life hits you hard, man. It comes at you fast. Next thing you know, she's yelling at you to take out the trash. No. But no, it's like I said, it's fun. We're going to talk about the Seattle game today. We're going to talk a little bit about the salary. It just got released today. And as well, we're going to give you guys some fantasy MLS updates from our Tectonic Takes League. We haven't been doing that regularly, but Ivan did last week, so we're going to keep it going. And
all right,
we're going to give what we want to, like who we thought was the best player of the Seattle game, and then a little bit of a preview of the next game with the Portland Timbers. Ivan, let's just right into it. Let's dive right into it.
So there's a couple of interesting stats that went into this game. One of the more interesting ones was, since the start of the 2020 season, there have been 6 instances of a team winning while trailing in the 80th minute or later. And knowing how this Seattle match went, we would have hoped that San Jose Earthquakes would have made it a 7th instance. Yeah. But still, San Jose Earthquakes have won 3 of those 6 games.
Wow.
That's really tough to do. A short window of time, you'd be happy with a point at that stage. San Jose have taken all 3, and it's those 3 points that we got from Real Salt Lake, the previous game before this, that makes this a loss. Okay, we lost to Seattle Sounders, but it's not like we're gasping for air trying to swim up the table still. Like, we're in a good spot. Like, this is why you beat the teams that are around your level, so that way when you face the Seattle Sounders, you give it your best shot. It doesn't work out, you go again. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and this is another opportunity where they could have got a point, just like in Houston, where Wando had that sitter, and he made up for it later in Real Salt Lake. But this is another opportunity where we could be sitting at 11 points instead of our current 9 points. But again, like you said, this is a loss to Seattle. We haven't won against Seattle in, I think, the last 3 years. So this
14 games.
Yeah, so it's normal. And at least it wasn't a humiliating loss. I apologize. It was something along the lines of, yes, we could have got a point from this, but we got Toledo. And Ivan, you know exactly.
Only Toledo. Yeah, unfortunately I do. It's one of those things where, like in school, if the principal knows your name, that's not good. If MLS fans know a referee's name, that's not good either.
Yeah, it's funny. He's been on VAR a lot, and I'm always like, oh, thank God he's not going to ruin the game. And you know what? He didn't help us out today. There was a foul where he let go. That was pretty rough closer to the end of the game, and it got a little chippy. And I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be a game where the ref decides on what happens. And again, I don't understand. Refs take time. If the build-up play is going, and there's still 4 minutes extra, right? And then Stephen Fry unfortunately went down with a pretty bad injury for 4 minutes, and then Roldan also went down for another 1 minute, but then he stops the extra time after all that's said and done at the 8th minute. So in reality, we only got 3 instead of 5, and we were attacking with a right back as their goalie. So it's just a little frustrating in my book.
It is frustrating. I understand the frustrations. I understand the concerns that, San Jose Earthquakes weren't able to get it done with the various opportunities and possession they had. But let's not get it twisted. It's not like Alex Roldan was in goal the whole game. It's not like he was in goal for 20 minutes even, 30 minutes even. He was in goal essentially like 89th minute onward. And granted, we did get a lot of stoppage time, but it's not like we were peppering him with shots. And I think that's a different flaw that we can look at. Yeah. But a couple times he was called into action. Maybe it wasn't the most challenging involvements. Like, he just had to literally be in the way. He didn't have to have his reflexes tested or anything. But he did the job. We saw this game coming up in the schedule and we're thinking, okay, Chris Wondolowski's in form. Raul Ruidiaz is in form. Cade Cowell is emerging as Warner Kid. Even to a lesser extent, you had the Frei Montero storyline. He was one of the original, early heroes of Seattle Sounders alongside Casey Keller, and he's back now. But it really is the Roldan brothers who stole the show, and Christian Roldan in particular, he had the biggest shoes to fill because Nicolas Saladero, one of your favorite MLS players for obvious Uruguay-related reasons, he wasn't in this game.
Right. A little disappointed on that. My sister and her brother, my brother-in-law were at the game, and since my son is Peruvian, I was like, hey, maybe get a Ruidiaz signature, and then he's also Uruguayan, so get Nicola Dado's signature too,
But that's cool. Your family covers both the Pacific and the Atlantic parts of South America.
Yeah, exactly. And but then I realized it's COVID, so you can't really do that anymore. But it was a good thought. I mean, Seattle has both of our national team, or my son's both national teams, and maybe if they got a Japanese player and a USA player, then they would be complete. I mean, Jordan Morris, right? So just a Japanese player. But no, again, it was nice to see that Will and Noda were actually at the game. They were covering the game on our Twitter. And it was just a frustrating game overall. I mean, I can tell and I was watching it at work, and I just could tell that it was just one of those games where it might not go our way, and that's okay. Again, this is a team that's Seattle, right? Even if they didn't have a Nicola Dado or 4 starters in Alex Roldan in goal, at least it wasn't a 7-1 where we're all over the all over the videos of MLS, just getting turned and just destroyed by Jordan Morris like last year. It's an okay loss, and we'll get into it a little bit who I thought was good at this game and who wasn't good. But Ivan, any last closing thoughts?
Yes, so real quick, some international soccer news pertaining to players involved in this match. Regarding Raul Ruidiaz, who no one has scored more goals than him since August 2020 in MLS, he and San Jose Earthquakes' Marcos Lopez were part of a 50-player Peruvian preliminary roster for the Copa America squad, and it includes 5 MLS players. So those two, along with Pedro Gallese for Orlando, Alexander Callens for New York City, and a player we played already this season, Edison Flores, who plays for DC United. And Jackson Ewell made the 40-man preliminary roster for the USA Nations League finals in June. They'll play Honduras in the semifinals, and then depending on if they win or lose, they'll play either the winner or loser of Mexico or Costa Rica. The entire tournament will take place at Mile High in Denver, and that makes more sense why they're playing Switzerland in St. Gallen as a tune-up friendly May 30th. So you get a bit of a chance to practice in altitude there.
Yeah, and a little tidbit on the Copa America. It's going to be in June. It's going to take place in Argentina and Colombia. So there's going to be 2 groups where one group plays in Argentina and another group plays in Colombia. So it's going to be a lot of good football this summer. And hey, man, it's summer. It's starting to get hot. Okay.
Yeah.
Out here in Japan, it's getting humid. All right. I was wearing a sweater today because I thought it was raining, but I was sweating. All right. How's San Diego weather? It's probably beautiful out there.
Actually, it's been kind of cold this week in San Diego. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
In May, it's like the calm before the summer storm in a way. Where in May it's a bit gloomy, it's a bit colder, but then in June it becomes like this tropical vacation destination that San Diego is known for. Going on summer vacations and all that. So yeah.
No, but
go ahead.
Speaking of Ruidiaz.
Mm-hmm.
I started him in my fantasy lineup. He had 2
me
points.
Too.
2 points. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not looking good this week, all right? But
hey, they play one more game. Oh,
so that counts?
Yeah, I think it's same as like
Oh,
usual
wow.
because there's two games, so it's like a double points week, I
Oh, wow.
believe.
That's awesome then. Because I captained Cade Cowell and he got more points. He got 6 points. So Cade Cowell almost had a goal last game. And man, that would have been nice if he would have got snuck in another goal there. It would have been a whole different game. We probably could have been going for the win instead of going for the tie. So Rui Diaz didn't play good, and that means Tanner Beeson did a great job. He had to guard Rui Diaz first, and then Freddie Montero after. Which Freddie Montero is no chump. I mean, he's won 3 Open Cups with Seattle before, so he's no chump. This guy's talent. He played with Vancouver the last couple of years, and he was still a threat. So definitely Tanner Beeson is stepping up into Alanisa's shoes, and Almeida's going to have a hard decision coming up soon. But in his press conference, it seemed like Almeida is still going to go with Alanis because Almeida was making a big deal about having 50 caps under you. And once you have 50 caps under you, then you become a senior player and you become less of a new kid. So we're probably going to still see Tanner Beeson on the bench no matter how well he does because Alanis just has that experience and he's our penalty kick taker. So definitely we need Alanis back. Hopefully his knee isn't bad. But another injury news, I asked Almeida during the press conference how Marcos Lopez is feeling because the last time he went out during the game, we didn't see him the next week. We thought the injury was a little more severe, but he was just out for 1 week. Matias Almeida seemed pretty confident that it was just cramps. It seems like he's going to be fine the next day. It's just cramps. Marcos Lopez will be in the lineup next week. So no, don't worry there. Ivan, what did you think about the players on the Seattle side? Who did you think didn't play so well? Who do you think played well on the San Jose side?
So yeah, I'll just talk about the first goal and only goal of the game. First with Christian Roldan adding to the growing list of MLS bangers. Just so many beautiful goals being scored in this league right now.
Right,
it was caused from a failure. Yeah, against us. It was caused from a failure to clear Nuhu's cross. So that wasn't great. You got to deal with those balls, and you got to be able to react to the return fire there. And of course, referee Baldomero Toledo awarded Quakes a penalty following Trophy's shot coming in contact with Yeimar Gomez Andrade's arm. But after VAR, it was deemed not to be an unnatural position. So that was an unfortunate opportunity taken away from the Quakes. Starting lineups for Seattle Sounders, started with Stephen Fry in goal. That's not how it ended, of course.
Right.
MLS After Dark, woo! Yeimar Gomez Andrade, Javier Arriaga, Jordi Delem were the back three, with Alex Roldan and Nuhu Tolo as the wingbacks. And then midfielder, you had young Danny Leyva with Christian Roldan filling in, of course, for Nicolas Ladera, of course.
And Roldan. Danny Leyva was in there for João Pedro, which is their DP. So they gave him a little bit of rest, and then they brought him in at the 60th minute. But Leyva played pretty well. You know, I saw Leyva out there, and I was like, what, Phil Leyva's out there? He's getting his soccer debut. Phil Leyva from Quakes After 90. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
I think he has a good potential on FIFA as well. Ethan Dobbelaere joined Kellen Rowe and Raul Ruiz as the front three. The changes from their previous game, Arriaga came in for O'Neill, Dillon for Brad Smith, Leyva for Paolo, and Dobbelaere for Will Bruin. And then the youth subs were Montero, Paolo Smith, and Shane O'Neill. And then for the San Jose Earthquakes, an unchanged lineup from the starting 11 that beat Real Salt Lake. And the youth subs that appeared were Wondolowski, Salinas, Rios, and Abakasis. There's no Judson today. The last result for Seattle prior to this game was a 2-1 win over Portland at Providence Park, with Rui Diaz scoring from the penalty spot and Freddie Montero scoring off the bench.
Yeah, and this is a lineup that was a little hurt. I mean, no Nicolo Dedo and no Joao Pedro to start the game. This looked like a game on paper we could have beat them. And we came out the gate slow, and that was evident. I mean, we had that almost handball penalty called, and then we broke down and we let them have a goal. And we have to be mentally stronger than that. I want to give a quick shout out to my man of the match, and the Quakes lineup was similar to last week, right? It was Marcos Lopez.
The same,
Marcos Lopez. Then we had Tanner Beeson, Florian Youngberg, Tommy Thompson, We had Remedi. We also had Jackson Yule as the center midfielders. Then we had Espinoza and Fierro on the wings, and Cade Cowla up top, and Chofis at the 10. Yeah. So very similar, I mean, to our last week. Yeah, exactly the same. Alanis is out again. But I want to give a quick shout out. Actually, this is my man of the match for this game. Florian Ljungwirth had a game. And unfortunately, it's a loss, but I think he had a couple of passes in the final third. And I was just like, wow, like this guy's coming all the way forward and he's laying off a beautiful pass. It was like Florian Ljungwirth when he was back in his center mid days, right? And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Fierro didn't get to it well enough at the first one that I saw. And I just thought Florian Ljungwirth played a hell of a game. I mean, he's leading Tanner Beeson Florian Ljungwirth's the veteran presence. So anything that Tanner Beeson really does, it's a lot of it's coming from Florian Ljungwirth. And I think we need to give credit when credit's due, because Florian Ljungwirth does get a lot of, haters calling him out, but today he had a great game.
Yeah, I think it was, it was a 1-0 loss. Of course, no clean sheet through 5 games for the San Jose Earthquakes. Right. But it's not like the defenders are doing poorly in this game or in this season even. They've made some brilliant interceptions, and Carlos Fierro isn't a defender on the team sheet, but he did make that goal line clearance. Yeah. It's not for lack of trying, and I think we saw what both Beeson and Florian Ljungwirth did. My man of the match, or men of the match, isn't on the San Jose Earthquakes team, but if I had to pick, it would have been Tanner Beeson. Both of those center backs deserve credit for the San Jose Earthquakes. It's not easy to keep Raul Ruiz quiet, considering how prolific he has been in MLS.
Definitely, and with 2 points in fantasy, the guy was nowhere to be found, and it just takes a second of brilliance for him to get on the score sheet, but Tanner Beeson and Florian Ljungwirth, they covered it up and didn't get anything out of him. Again, this was a goal also scored against us, guys. This wasn't an easy shot. So this easily could have been a 0-0 draw. And it just sucks that we haven't gotten a clean sheet yet. And it just seems like every week we're getting golazo scored against us. And maybe that has to do with the sort of pressure outside of the box in the middle of the area. But I remember that was a problem last year. I always felt like, man, either it's a pinball goal where the ball falls into the box and it just bounces off of a couple of players, or it's a golazo scored against us. And I feel like that's
no in between.
Every single time with this Almeida team, right? It's always that, either corners and a pinball, or it's a golazo. But speaking about the Roldan goal, how did you feel about the Roldan brothers?
Yeah, this is what keeps MLS fans on the East Coast engaged when it's midnight or even later. Having these weird occurrences happen, it's similar to Pac-12 after dark. You never know what to expect. And Alex Roldan, he filled in very well. Like we've seen a couple times in MLS, last year in the playoffs, Rodrigo Schlegel had to fill in for a penalty shootout to help Orlando City advance. And I think one of the more famous examples was Mike McGee, of course, too. And it's always fun to see it happen, but obviously from San Jose Earthquakes' perspective, you want to pressure them as much as possible, get as much shots on target. This was one of the rare occasions where I disagreed with Daniel Slater's analysis on the broadcast. She wanted a lot of crosses to the 6-yard box to really keep Alex Roldan guessing. And I understand that perspective, but if you're focusing so much on those traditional crosses, you're giving him time to see the flight of the ball coming, and you're also giving his center backs to react and just head the ball away or, make a clearance. What I think fans, particularly on social media, what I saw is they would rather see more incisive passes and just keep him concerned in that way, and then catch him sleeping and then just slide it in, because being a field player, you're not going to have the reactions of an out-and-out goalkeeper, and that's where you trip him up. Any field player is going to know, like, you're going to try to challenge shots, you're going to challenge crosses, you're going to extend yourself as much as possible, but you have to get to that next level thinking that's going to trip up a player that's filling in that role.
Yeah, and this is the first time I ever seen, like, I guess people not liking Danielle Slayton's analysis. And I believe it had to do a lot with that too. But I think she did a phenomenal job out there. She pointed
always
out,
does.
She pointed out that the Quakes were trying to attack by getting in behind the center backs, and that wasn't really working this whole game. What they needed to do is instead maybe have Cade Cowell do a hold-up play and then pass it off to Trophies and have Trophies shoot. But whatever the Quakes tried to do, it wasn't working. I mean, the wings, went missing. I mean, where was Christian Espinosa this game? He had a perfect, beautiful ball come in from Cade Cowell, and he let it go. He shot it so badly that it was a throw-in. And unfortunately, if you're our first DP and the highest paid player on this team, you have to at least put it on frame. If it's right at the goalie, it's right at the goalie, but it's on frame. So again, Christian Espinosa is regressing a little bit this year. I at first thought he was one of the most unlucky players this year, but after seeing that just be served on a platter, again, Cade Cowell could have ended this game with the goal and an assist. It just seems like, man, that was an opportunity wasted where Christian Espinosa could have gained some confidence back. And this might be a tough season for Christian Espinosa because he's not used to having the load off of him. But again, Carlos Fierro. Shout out Andres Fierro. I always say you because I always see you on my timeline. Carlos Fierro, the stormtrooper on acid, was nowhere to be found this game. He had some crosses, but they just weren't connected. It felt like when Cade Cowell's out there, again, Matias Almeidas has said this before, he's not good at heading the ball. He doesn't have the positioning as Wando, and that's probably why we saw Cade come out this game, because we needed someone to head the ball, or they kept on trying to cross the ball in, and it just wasn't connecting. Nobody was in the middle of the box. Either Cade Cowell was behind, we didn't make that right pass, or we just did the wrong cross, and that's how it went this game.
Right, and let's be clear, that was my analysis of him when he first arrived at San Jose Earthquakes and how much it took him to get going. He wasn't performing well, but he turned it around. Now he's a player that, he's week in, week out in the starting lineup, and I don't bat an eyelid, I don't blink. That's just something I expect now because he's earned that spot. I don't think it's going to be too doom and gloom for Christian Espinosa. I think every player goes through a rough patch, and I think he's going to get more opportunities to get goals and assists, particularly the assists he got last season. And I think Quakes are in a position where, similar to when they had Magnus Eriksson, it's really tough to replace him with another player in the lineup. If you're to upgrade on Christian Espinosa, you're not going to necessarily put that pressure on someone else who isn't playing regularly. You would have to sign someone else. And the fact that a player like Christian Espinosa, he was on the books for Villarreal for so long. He's an Argentine player. He is cut from the similar cloth as a lot of these other South American players that have taken MLS by storm. Granted, he's not necessarily one of the top 3, top 5 South Americans in MLS, but he plays like one a lot of the time. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll see how he goes on these next few games. A bit of a mini gauntlet San Jose Earthquakes have coming up. My men of the match, the brothers of the match, I think Alex and Christian Roldan, they stole the show. Christian Roldan with the banger. Alex Roldan stepped in when Seattle Sounders were most vulnerable, and he did a good enough job. And that's what you want if you have a field player in goal. Just all hands on deck. Keep the clean sheet, which Seattle Sounders did. Preserve the lead, and they escaped PayPal Park with 3 points. And we all know how tough it is to get 3 points in away games in MLS. We saw it in action against Real Salt Lake with the 83rd and 87th minute miracle, but Seattle Sounders were the one that got it done tonight. Yeah,
and let's go ahead and stop talking about the doom and gloom because we have a big game coming up next. But before we go into that, the salaries dropped today, and I want to talk a little bit about the salaries that really kind of caught my eye. Eric Remedi is on a $450,000 contract. Andy Rios is making almost $1 million. He's making $900 million. $100 million. Yes. No, he's making $939,000. He, I believe, is the second highest paid player on this roster.
Oh, jeez.
So Andy Rios, you need to do something this next upcoming game or when you come off the bench. Marcos Lopez is not making that much money. I mean, he's on that young player money, but he's making $370,000 this year.
Okay.
Now on to the people that are considered poor in the Bay Area.
Oh yeah.
Paul Marie makes only about $81,000 or $87,000. And that is looking like a steal. If he can come in and be the next Shea Salinas for us, man, that's a great salary. And that's a great, piece of business. I mean, if Emi Ochoa is making $75,000 and Paul Marie is making $87,000, that's a great piece of business for the Earthquakes. As well as Jack Scahan, he's making about $66,000. Benji Kikonovic, I hope I said that right. Kikonovic is making about $66,000. Let me see if I can find that again. Yeah, he's making about $66,000. Daniel Vega is making about $225,000. So that's that's a big chunk and change for a backup goalkeeper. So hopefully when his name is called upon, he definitely goes ahead and makes an impact. But Ivan, anything that really sticks out to you? Anything that's really shocking? Actually, this one's a big one. Gilbert Fuentes making $178,000. Yeesh. Good thing we loaned him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeesh.
But if you loan out a player, I believe you still are paying the wages depending on what you negotiated with the parent, with the loanee club. Maybe there's a bit of a wage split here, and maybe I'm talking too much about FIFA, but I believe that's how it works.
No, but in FIFA, I mean, you would get the wages.
You covered a lot of the San Jose Earthquake stuff with the Sally.
Yeah, I mean, Christian
with the MLS news, the highest paid player is Carlos Vela. He is with a base guaranteed compensation of $6.3 million, and Javier Chicharito Hernandez has $6 million as well. And also rounding out the top runners list, you got Gonzalo Higuain, $5.8 million, Alejandro Pozuelo for Toronto, $4.7 million, Joseph Martinez, $3.8 million. I believe he's underpaid, given how much he's done in MLS compared to some of the other players, and maybe overpaid, but of course he's getting that U.S. men's national team bump. Josie Altidore at $3.6 million, maybe covering some medical costs and trips to his wife's tennis games. But then in terms of
buying tickets to go see Taylor Twellman.
Yeah, definitely not. In terms of payroll by team, Inter Miami is the highest at $17.8 million. So
Jeez.
David Beckham is making sure everyone gets their cars and stuff. Toronto is at $17 million. LA Galaxy $16.8 million, and the fifth highest payroll, and this is probably the biggest waste of money. FC Cincinnati, shout out to our friends at Soccer Crush. Your team is being paid $15.5 million for doing what exactly?
They signed Jeff Cameron. So, I mean, hopefully that shores up their defense. This one's a little shocking to me, Ivan. I got one for you. Nico Lodeiro. $2.7 million. That's a little underpaid. I think that's underpaid.
He should not be making less than Josie Altidore. That just shows, like, if you're U.S. men's national team player, you're getting a bit more of a cut, and I understand that because MLS is trying their best to grow the sport with Americans, and they want to make sure that if they have U.S. men's national team caliber players, which you can debate whether or not Josie Altidore should be still, they want to make sure they're getting paid so they stay in MLS. But granted, at this point, players like Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley, they had their chance to move back to Europe like a couple years ago, and they haven't. So I think they're going to stick around.
This one's even more shocking. Rui Diaz, $2.1 million.
Yeah, another underpaid player, but credit to Seattle Sounders for balancing everything out. And, they didn't come up in this list of the high salaries, but they're getting a lot of their players. They're constantly competing for MLS Cups. So they've gotten the job done a couple times, so good for them. Carlos
Fierro and an Andy Rios equals a Rui Diaz. Let me get that. But Christian Espinoza is our highest player at 1.3. He makes 1.3 million.
Sense. Yeah.
And we are, I believe, 23rd out of everybody. So we do have a pretty low.
We're 23rd?
Yeah, I believe so.
There's 5 teams with a lower payroll than us, according to the ESPN article. It's Vancouver Whitecaps the lowest, followed by Austin, Philadelphia Union, Houston Dynamo, and Colorado Rapids. Maybe we're the next one after that, according to this, but still, I imagined we weren't that high on the payroll because, we know who our ownership are.
Yeah, and I mean, but seeing those business that the Seattle Sounders do, okay, all right, let's go ahead and move on because we could be depressed.
One last thing about the Seattle Sounders is their next game is up against LAFC. If you think Quake Sounders games are entertaining, as this one last night was to an extent, it's another level for these two. Almost every time they play against each other, it's been a phenomenal game to watch. And my tectonic take is that their budding rivalry almost feels as intense as their respective main rivalries. It's going to take a little bit more time. Maybe they'll be in the playoffs again, but and no matter what happens, like Seattle's main rivalry is Portland, and LAFC is LA Galaxy. Galaxy is kind of like, they got a couple rivalries juggling, but I think Seattle Sounders and LAFC, when they play each other, like, not necessarily they're out for blood, but they want to beat the other team more than you usually do.
Yeah, and Ivan, I actually forgot to ask you, speaking about brothers, who's the best brother partnership this league has ever seen? So we have the Wright Phillips brothers, we have the Roldan brothers, and we have the Higuain brothers, just off the top of my head.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I'm trying to think, are we missing anyone else in
Beasler?
Yeah, there's Matt and Nick Beasler. We played against Nick last week against Real Salt Lake.
I'm gonna go with the Higuain brothers. I think they're at the end of the day, they're gonna have the best careers in MLS. The Wright Phillips brothers probably the second best, personally.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the Higuain brothers, they're a big story for a reason.
Yeah. No, definitely. Okay, well, moving on to this next game versus Portland Timbers.
Well, first, the Fantasy League update. And then we got a couple questions.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Let's do it. I haven't taken the lead on that.
Congrats to Art, Eric, Terry, and myself for being the 4 teams entering Week 5, 4 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses. So we're doing a head-to-head record league this season, and those are the teams that are in form right now. I will admit that this week I captained Chicharito. I didn't have the heart to captain Rui Diaz against ourselves. I'm not that much of a hater against our team, but I don't feel bad. I feel less bad because, of course, I'm Mexican. I enjoy the Mexican national team as well. So I was gonna, hope for the best for Chicharito as long as it doesn't interfere with our best as San Jose Earthquakes fans.
Hey guys, I captained Kid Cal, so you know who the real fan is. No, I'm kidding.
It's not as risky of a play as it would have been at the start of the season.
Right.
So, but yeah, that is dedication there.
Yeah, and maybe next week against Portland, he has a bigger game, so we're excited.
In 3 days, it's still the same match week.
Yeah, right. So, guys, make sure to set your lineups. It's a lot of fun. Definitely talking about this all the time. So this is going to be a fun year with fantasy MLS. So please set your lineups. All right, Ivan. We have a couple of fan questions. You want to go ahead and get started?
Yes. So Mike Kleeman on Twitter asks, why did Almeida let Fierro and Espinoza swap? I believe he meant the swap winger tactics, like we've seen Manchester United do in the Sir Alex Ferguson days. It made no sense. Seattle had Brad Smith, Nuhu, and Javier Arriaga. Why is our DP not attacking that side? It was their weakness. However, he left for Tanner, though. Rui Diaz did 0 under his watch. So what do you think?
Yeah, so Almeida on the press conference has actually said that Espinoza and Fierro have the freedom to do whatever they want. So that is something that they decided because Almeida has the confidence in them. So they probably decided that for some reason it just wasn't working out. I believe Nuhu was actually getting past Fierro and Tommy Thompson the whole game. So it might have been that Espinoza went over to that side and tried to help out. But again, it's totally up to the players at that point because Almeida has the confidence in the players to make those decisions. All right. The next question comes from Matelio.
Mm-hmm.
Matelio on Twitter. I thought it was Matt Leo.
Nah, the 3 is is like an E apparently.
All right. Matelio. Let me see. I just lost my spot. 1 second. All right. On Twitter asks, would Judson have made a difference? Ivan, what do you think?
So let's see. The main area where Judson would have made a difference, you think, would be the goal that San Jose Earthquakes conceded. And given the overall defensive structure and tactics of San Jose Earthquakes, as great as Judson is defensively, I don't think that he would necessarily have prevented Christian Roldan's goal unless he was, or the person playing in his place was specifically the one that should have been or was closest to Christian Roldan when he unleashed that rocket. So he certainly wouldn't have been as much of an asset as another midfielder would have been in chasing the game being down a goal. I think, yeah, so it's a wash for me. I'm not sure he would have been a difference maker in this situation. Eric Remedy has done a fine job when called upon, as he has been for most of this season so far.
Possibly taking out Carlos Fierro and then putting Judson on the side, but I mean, we haven't seen him at wing that often. Almeida said he possibly can put him out there if need be, but yeah, I don't really think he could have made a difference. Tanner Beeson was doing a great job going forward at the end, so we definitely needed that height to see if we can get in a goal at the end. So all right, Nico Gonzo on Discord asks, what keeps us from breaking through the final third? Ivan?
It's a riddle for the San Jose Earthquakes that they just haven't been able to crack the code sometimes. A lot of the losses in the last few years under Almeida, we've seen San Jose Earthquakes dominate the possession category, or at least win that battle. And that reminds me, we didn't go over the stats, which we'll go back to real quick.
Yeah. And the possession, we definitely won by a lot.
Let me just do that now, actually, and then I'll answer the... Yes, so the Sounders outshot Quakes 17-15. Shots on target, Quakes led 6-1. So really, the one shot on target Seattle Sounders had, they scored.
Right. It was
possession. Quakes had 60%, so that is a significant chunk of possession.
But the
passing accuracy, Quakes led 81-74%. I know, possession is 9/10 of the law, not the whole thing. Both create one chance. San Jose Earthquakes had 9 corners to Seattle Sounders 2. We gotta cash in on one of those. And fouls was pretty even for both of them. Offsides, Quakes had 3, Sounders had 1. So it's just, Seattle Sounders, they even had defensive formation. They had 3 at the back. They had 2 wing backs. Roldan, earlier in his career, was more of a defensive midfielder, so it could be a defensive player, but really he's been more attacking lately. The jury's out on Dylan Leyva, but pretty much Seattle Sounders, they were set up to, once they got that lead, they had enough players behind the ball that they could make life difficult for the attacking side, which is San Jose Earthquakes. So it was just one of those things where San Jose Earthquakes blew the opportunities they had, and that's something that they have to work on, and hopefully it improves.
Okay, and so the reason I'm laughing is because this next person that asked on Discord is Mada, and I can't say the rest because this is a PG.
Let me just I'll spell out the name: MUDAFUQA. And the rest, the listeners, you can piece that together on your own, I'm sure. So this is another Discord question. Go ahead, Fabi.
He asks our thoughts on the refereeing for tonight's game, particularly towards the end. Ivan? That's all I gotta say.
The referee was not the mood tonight. It was not the move. It was not great. But, San Jose Quakes still had the opportunities. I'm not putting 100% of the fault of why Quakes lost on the referees, because you have to have a really strong case for that. I think, with all the games that we watch, it's very easy to point at all the questionable refereeing, and especially in MLS, we know that we don't have the best referees, and it is odd when people point at MLS refereeing as why MLS isn't the best league. Is like, there are other legitimate reasons why MLS isn't the best league, and we're aware of them, but referees are referees regardless of where they play in the world. You are learning by the same FIFA rulebook. So, and it's not like referees in the Premier League are more fit or whatever than referees in MLS. So that's just a ridiculous argument. But anyway, I digress. I wasn't happy with the refereeing, but it wasn't the only reason why San Jose Earthquakes came up empty-handed in this game.
Yeah, and shout out to USL Pro. All right, you guys are doing a great job. Not Toledo though. Shout out to everybody else.
And lastly, Jordy Smith on Facebook. Did the team feel let down after the denied penalty? Seemed we play our game for all but the 10 minutes after the VAR decision. I think that was the case, and it's a natural feeling.
Yeah.
Penalties are such big game changers in this sport. So if you don't get that opportunity to change the game, and it changes the whole complexion of the game, Seattle Sounders have to keep going forward. They have to use their offensive substitutions, and they have to maybe expose themselves a bit. And maybe even though they had 5 defenders on the field for much of the game, it does stretches them out a bit more. So it is tough to, just have that short memory, just keep swimming, and try to, play on from there. But every minute counts, and hopefully that's another lesson they take from this game, is that when something doesn't go your way, just try and make it happen, make your own luck.
Yeah, and that's all about mental toughness, right? They need to have the mental toughness to become a great team in this league, and they're very close, guys. They're very close, and hopefully with this mistake, they understand it, and it doesn't happen again.
My final thoughts on this game, and I mentioned this on Twitter, this game would be a lot less interesting. It wouldn't feel the same for me if this was Seattle FC versus San Jose FC. Like, we know what's happening with the Columbus Crew right now. They are trying to rebrand it into just Columbus SC, Columbus Soccer Club, and I think it's bullshit. I'm not apologizing for that. It really is. I think if you're going to insist that we get, and no offense to those teams or their fans, but if we're going to get Atlanta United, if we're going to get FC Cincinnati, if we're going to get Charlotte FC or whatever, that's fine. Inter Miami, that's a little bit different, but it's the same trope. You're copying the European leagues, and it's not nothing new. We have Houston Dynamo, like Dinamo Zagreb or Dinamo Kiev. We have Real Salt Lake. Guess which team that's based on. But we also have a lot of unique names that make MLS what it is.
Real Sociedad.
No, it's Valladolid, Fabi. But one of the biggest criticisms of MLS, and again, it's not necessarily the most structured logic, is that these MLS names feel like they're cosplaying as a European soccer league, when the structure with the salary cap and the lack of promotion relegation, it is not European. But these unique names like San Jose Earthquakes, Seattle Sounders, Portland Timbers, LA Galaxy, it makes this league a bit more fun and stand out. And I feel like it's part of MLS heritage, MLS history that we're losing out on if we just rebrand everything. We don't want every team to sound the same. And I'm not saying because it's Arsenal FC and not Arsenal Gunners, like the North American version of that club would be, that's not interesting either. I feel like there's a connection that these fans have with the club, and the more you change things unnecessarily, you lose that connection.
Ivan, I have a question for you. If you did have to choose a European name for San Jose, what would you choose?
Just make it a little bit different. San Jose Wanderers, like Bolton or Wolverhampton, I guess.
I like Atletico San Jose. I think
Atletico San Jose.
That would
there
sound
is an
nice.
Athletic. We wouldn't technically be the first one. It would be because I believe there's a Canadian Premier League team, Atletico Ottawa, but but that would be kind of cool. I mean, that would be more relevant to the Spanish speaking population of fans here in the Bay Area. Right. But hopefully that doesn't happen. San Jose Earthquakes is a very fitting name for California. It's a very interesting name, and cool. So let's just keep it. Anyway, hopefully Columbus Crew keeps their name.
Yeah, and even Liga MX has like cool names like MLS. So Chivas, right? The Guadalajara. Yeah. So Monterrey. I mean, I guess La Rayados is the nickname, but
They did kind of do the same thing. They lost Monarcas and Morelia, and they relocated them to Mazatlan.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
even like Tijuana, you got the Cholos. Like it's really
Cholos, yeah.
cool. Yeah.
And Orlando City just got sold as well to the Vikings owner. So Skull down in Orlando, I guess he just loves purple jerseys.
Yeah, that's true.
So speaking of other MLS teams, we have results. Ivan, you want to go ahead and read the results for us?
Yeah, so we started the match week 5 off with Toronto FC beating Columbus Crew 2-0. I caught a little bit of that game, and I want to say shout out to TSN. They did a great job with their lineup infographics. They have the flags of each player with the starting 11, which is I thought was pretty cool. That's something I'm always interested in, especially with a diverse league as Major League Soccer, to know about which countries these players are representing. We had a couple of slept-on teams pick up some impressive wins. Montreal and Houston Dynamo continue their impressive starts to the season. Montreal beat Inter Miami 2-0, and Houston Dynamo beat Sporting Kansas City 1-0. Our only draw of the day was between Philadelphia Union and New England Revolution, two of the better Eastern Conference teams on paper. Although Philadelphia Union are slumping in the table to start the season, they drew 1-1. And Minnesota United pick up their first points of the season, beating Vancouver Whitecaps 1-0.
Yeah, and Philadelphia
Any thoughts on those results?
Yeah, Philadelphia Union is everyone's favorite second team this year. They're the last team in the CONCACAF Champions League, so hopefully, best of luck to them. We finally lift that trophy. We went from 5-1, so everybody's a Philadelphia Union fan this year. Ivan, do you have a comment about the Thursday night game that we have?
Oh boy, I'm so excited for this one. DC United against Chicago. Okay, I could barely finish that with a straight face, honestly. Like, I'm sorry, DC United and Chicago Fire fans, but now I know what NFL fans feel like when they get a Thursday night football match that it sucks. And honestly, like, they could put another game of it. They could put Philadelphia Union versus New England Revolution in this one. Like, DC United and Chicago Fire, two rebuilding teams. Honestly, if you put their NFL equivalents, like, I'd rather watch Washington football team versus Chicago Bears now that Chicago Bears have Justin Fields. Like, right. That's just the reality of the situation. But that's going to be the MLS action for Thursday, May 13th. What do you think of the games on Saturday and Sunday? We have a whole lot of them. Give me one or two that stand out for you, besides, of course, Quakes versus Timbers.
Yeah, Ivan, actually on this graphic you have it a little, or I thought LA plays, oh yeah, they play Austin. LA Galaxy plays Austin. I am excited for that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun. That's probably the one I'm going to be watching. LA Galaxy's playing crazy lights out right now. It's a little scary, to be honest. This Cali Classico is going to be a little tough this year. But I don't know. I don't know if Austin's the real deal yet either. And I love watching them because they have Danny Hughes and Tarbell and Nick Lima. So that's going to be a fun game. Ivan, any game that you're looking forward to?
So along with that, Sounders versus LAFC, of course, is the standout game right now. I think another one to look out for, I think Atlanta United versus Montreal. Montreal, they're in good form right now, and Atlanta United, they're trying to get back to where they were a couple seasons ago. And I think we're seeing two teams that are trying to redeem themselves from recent history. And I think that has the makings of a good match as well. That'll be on Saturday.
And Ivan, what did you say FC Cincinnati's payroll was at? They were like top 5, right?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Were they number 2? Because Inter Miami at number 1 with their payroll versus FC Cincinnati, which is number 2. That should be an interesting game.
I think Cincinnati was number 5. I'm trying to pull up the exact number. But still, they're not
MLS heavyweights. This is like a derby right here, But definitely exciting stuff. But going into our Portland preview, Ivan, what's your prediction for the next game and who are the players to look out for?
Yeah, so just a bit of a macro perspective, along with the Portland Timbers game coming up this Saturday, the next two games after that are big games as well. We get a rematch against Sporting Kansas City at home, following the playoff win over us. And then May 29th, we go to Dignity Health Sports Park to face LA Galaxy in the first Cali Classico this season. Then for May 29th, there will be no more MLS action until June 19th, where Austin FC will host their first opponents in MLS history, being us, San Jose Earthquakes. But looking ahead just to the Portland Timbers game, I think that this has the material for a bounce-back game for the San Jose Earthquakes. I think it's going to be a 1-0 win. I think we're going to get that elusive clean sheet. We're like Captain Ahab finding that white whale. We're going to get it this game against Portland Timbers. But I'm not going to underestimate them. I think San Jose Earthquakes really need to respond well to that game in order to make this result happen. Portland Timbers are going to be desperate for a win as well, given their slow start to the season. But I think the Quakes will have enough in the tank to get 3 points.
Yeah, and looking at it macroly, as a macro perspective as well, no MLS action until June 19th. From May 29th, that's when the transfer window opens. So we get a good understanding of how this team is looking at that stoppage and see if we bring in any reinforcements. And I think we might need them. But hey, if we end this first, third of the season with, let's say 18 points, I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. And that's 3 more wins. So that would be pretty.
I was thinking, so right now we're 9 points from a possible 15. I think Portland Timbers, Sporting Kansas City, and LA Galaxy, I would expect at least 1 win against those 3 opponents, but they're all tough teams. I think if we can get minimum 4 points, that's our main expectations, because we are shooting for playoffs and we're shooting for playoff success beyond that. So credit to these teams. They're going to give us some tough games, but Portland is a good opportunity to get 3 points, and then from there we'll see what happens with Sporting Kansas City and LA Galaxy after that. I will be on a trip this weekend. I will be unavailable to do the post-game podcast following the Portland Timbers game.
Wait, Ivan. Why will you be unavailable? Yellow card accumulation.
Yeah, I got a yellow card for using BS to describe the Columbus Crew situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll be back. I have work off both Saturdays after that for Sporting Kansas City and LA Galaxy. Of course, LA Galaxy, there's another small game coming up before that game called the UEFA Champions League Final. So, of course, I'm excited for that too. Yeah. But I'm happy that I'm off both those days to enjoy the games and then cover them again. But I'm going to have a little bit of break in the meantime.
Yeah, and I believe the Champions League Final is London SC and Manchester SC. No.
Chelsea Blues against the Manchester City Wizards or something.
Exactly. All right. Well, my prediction for the Portland game is, I think 3-2. I think
3-2. Oh wow, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I don't think we get that clean sheet. I think it's gonna be.
Darn it!
I don't think we get that clean sheet until the break. I think Austin FC is gonna be our first clean sheet.
You think we're gonna come into Austin, their first ever home opener? Their fans are gonna be wild and like excited. Clean sheet. Oh my gosh, that would be cool. I'm not underestimating Austin FC. They are not looking like a punching bag expansion team. That's going to be a good game too. But I think of the foreseeable future this next month or so, I'd put them in the category of winnable opponents.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps it up for all of us. I want to give a quick shout out to all of our sponsors. Thank you, Roughneck Scarves and the Beautiful Game Network, for sponsoring this video and podcast. If you want to get a custom scarf of MLS or USL and US Soccer, get custom scarves for your group at Roughneck Scarves. Tired of the same old uniforms, Ivan, and the cookie cutter templates from Nike and Adidas? Looking for a unique and completely custom kit for your youth club? Call Favian. He has J-League adult or even pro teams. Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Let them help you design your new custom fit at icarusfc.com.
Alphabetically and geography, you were so close to Vaco, but so far. He's playing well in the K-League, but any cool stuff happening in the J-League for you, Fabi?
I have yet to pick a team, so I'm going to start making some videos on covering the J-League out here for our Patreon subscribers, and shout out to all those guys. You guys make this possible. Thank you so much.
I'm also interested, whenever the Champions League there starts up again, because they have to cover so much distance.
Right.
Even when they're split for much of the campaign before the final, they have the Western Asia bracket with like the Saudi League and
Right.
stuff like that, and then you have the Eastern bracket with A League, K League, J League. It's like Sesame Street almost, but all the letter leagues on the eastern side of Asia. But still, like going from Tokyo to Sydney, for example, for potential Champions League game is no joke. So that's a very interesting competition for me.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to choosing a team with all you guys. If you want to join me on this journey, it's going to be on our Patreon. So it's going to be a fun little time. We're going to do a little more behind the scenes stuff too. We did a little poll to see what you guys are interested in. But it looks like behind the scenes won. So you guys want to see a little more behind the scenes. We could totally do that. But that wraps it up for us, guys. Again, thank you for
look out for my next article on MLS Multiplex. I'm going to wait for the Portland Timbers game, and then I'll do an assessment on these two games together for my next article.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, thank you again, everybody on Patreon. We appreciate you guys. And if you want to join our Patreon, we have some fun stuff coming up. So, please, the links are below. And that wraps it up for us, guys. My name is Favian Renkel, and I'm with
Ivan Ornelas.
And go Quakes.
Thanks.